It started small, as these things usually do. She had said she was tired. It was a Thursday, I remember that clearly. Late summer, the kind of evening where the heat lingers on the sidewalk and the cicadas hum like they're keeping time for something just out of reach. I got home around 6:30 p.m., later than usual, work running long because one of the junior guys messed up a client presentation. I brought home takeout, Thai, her favorite. But when I walked through the door, the house was dim. No music, no scent of candles, no glass of wine waiting on the counter the way there used to be. She was upstairs in bed, shoes still on, scrolling through her phone with one leg half draped over the comforter. "Hey," she said, barely glancing up. "Long day. I'm wiped. Think I'm just gonna crash early." I stood in the doorway holding 2 steaming containers of pad thai and green curry, trying not to feel invisible. "Want me to bring you dinner up here?" She shook her head. "No appetite. Just beat." That was all. No kiss. No question about my day. Not even a smile. I went back downstairs, ate alone. The room too quiet. The TV murmuring background noise I didn't really hear. I told myself she was stressed. Work had been brutal for her too. Budget cuts, new management, long nights. I rationalized it. That's what you do when you love someone. You give them room. You make excuses. You wait for the warmth to return. She was asleep when I came up later, or at least she pretended to be. I stood there for a moment, watching her back rise and fall, phone still plugged in, screen dark. The kind of stillness that feels rehearsed. I should have known then. The next few days were odd in that subtle way that's easy to dismiss if you're not looking too closely. She got a sudden burst of energy on Saturday, met up with Olivia from work for a brunch that stretched into early evening. Sunday, she needed me time, so she went to the spa. I asked if she wanted to watch a movie when she got back. She said maybe, then fell asleep on the couch 10 minutes into it. No intimacy, no warmth, just this hovering fog between us. Then came Monday. That was the night everything shifted. We were brushing our teeth side by side, silent, like 2 strangers passing each other in an airport lounge. She paused mid-rinse, looked at me through the mirror, and said, "I think we're just off lately. Don't you?" I nodded, toothbrush still in my mouth. "We should do something," she said. "Like get away. Maybe that'll help." I remember this pang of hope shooting through me. Maybe she wanted to fix it. Maybe this was her trying. "Sure," I said too quickly. "Yeah, we can plan something." But the next night, she said she had to work late. And the night after that. Then came Wednesday. She was already in bed when I got home. Light off, door half closed. When I leaned in to check on her, she stirred just enough to murmur, exhausted, going to sleep. I stood there, staring at her silhouette in the dark. I whispered, "You okay?" She didn't answer, so I went back downstairs again. Alone. That night, something gnawed at me. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept looping over the details. The coldness. The shift. The timing. I told myself I was overthinking, until I realized I hadn't heard her car pull into the driveway when I got home. The lights were off, the garage closed, but I hadn't seen her shoes in the hallway. The smallest things become enormous when doubt creeps in. At 11:53 p.m., I walked down the stairs in bare feet. No reason, really. Just restlessness. A pulse behind my ribs that wouldn't quit. I glanced at the front door, then checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. No location shared. That's when I noticed the faint sound, a car engine. I stepped to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough. Her car wasn't in the driveway. My heart hit my ribs like a warning bell. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. At 12:07 a.m., headlights swept across the wall as her car turned in slowly, like she was trying not to wake anyone. I stepped back, breath held. I didn't want to assume the worst. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. I wanted to believe her. But my body moved before my thoughts did. I walked straight to the front door, unlocked it, and pulled it open as quietly as I could. There she was, hair tousled, makeup smudged like she'd wiped it off in a hurry. And standing just behind her, still in the shadow of the porch light, was a man, taller than me. Hoodie pulled up. His eyes locked on mine for a half second, just enough for me to see it wasn't the first time he'd seen that door. And then he ran. Didn't say a word. Didn't even look back at her. Just turned and sprinted into the night. She gasped, stepping halfway inside as if her body couldn't decide where to belong. "It's not what it looks like," she said, the oldest, weakest line in the world. I stared at her, at the way her mouth trembled, at the fact that she didn't chase after him, at the tired lie collapsing between us like a house with no foundation. She was still breathless, not from guilt, from running, or whatever came before it. And all I could say, all I could muster in that moment was, "You said you were tired." She blinked, tears welling now, as if that could erase what I'd seen. "I was," she whispered. I nodded. Then I closed the door behind her, walked past her like she was furniture, and sat down at the kitchen table, the same one we used to laugh around, plan vacations at, talk about baby names over. She didn't follow. She just stood there, silent, as the clock ticked louder than I ever remembered it ticking. She didn't speak. Not for a long time. Just stood near the doorway like she'd forgotten how to move. Her keys dangled from one hand, her purse still slung over her shoulder like she'd only stopped by for a moment and didn't plan to stay. I sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed, staring at the plate of takeout I hadn't touched from earlier. It felt surreal, like my brain hadn't quite caught up to what my eyes had seen. The man, the look in his eyes, the way he bolted like a teenager sneaking out of someone else's house. And her, looking at me like I was the one who had some explaining to do. She finally set her keys down on the counter. "Let me explain," she said, her voice low, almost cautious. "Sure," I said quietly. "Go ahead." "I was with Olivia," she began. My eyes met hers immediately. She flinched. "You want to try again?" I asked. No edge in my voice. Just tired. She looked down at her shoes. "Okay. I wasn't with Olivia." "Right. I went for a drive." I tilted my head. "With someone who runs when he sees me?" She had no answer. "Was it the first time?" I asked. That made her look up. "What?" "The first time you brought someone to this house." I nodded toward the front door. "Our house." "No," she whispered, the honesty slipping out before she could catch it. And there it was. No fireworks. No screaming. Just the blunt force of truth landing between us like a steel beam. Something inside me, something I'd been holding up for months, gave out. "You should sit," I said, motioning to the chair across from me. She hesitated but obeyed, sliding into the seat like a kid called to the principal's office. We sat across from each other in silence. "You want to know the worst part?" I asked after a while. She said nothing. "I believed you," I said. "Every time. When you said you were tired. When you said it was just stress. When you came home smelling like someone else's cologne, and I convinced myself it was just the new perfume counters at Nordstrom. I didn't want to see it." Tears welled up in her eyes. She wiped at them half-heartedly. "I didn't mean for it to get like this." "Then how did it get like this?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "It wasn't planned." I leaned back in my chair. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No," she said. I don't know how to explain it." I nodded slowly. "Let me try then. You felt unseen, unloved, maybe even bored. I was working too much, not paying enough attention. Maybe I stopped doing the little things that made you feel special. And somewhere along the way, instead of talking to me, instead of asking for more, you found someone else to fill the silence." She looked stunned. "That's not fair." "No," I said, "but is it wrong?" She looked away. "Look, I'm not pretending I was perfect. I know I drifted sometimes. Got wrapped up in deadlines, clients, projects. But I always thought we had each other's backs. That if something was wrong, you'd tell me. That we were stronger than this." She sniffled. "It wasn't just about you." I figured that. "I felt hollow," she said. "Like I was just performing. Being the wife, the friend, the coworker. And you were always gone. Even when you were home, you were gone." I looked down at my hands. The same hands that built this house, paid for her car, planned anniversary trips. The same hands that used to hold hers when she cried at movies or danced tipsy in the kitchen. Now they just sat there, useless. "So he made you feel real again?" I asked. She didn't answer. The silence stretched. "I want to ask who he is," I said. "But I won't. Because it doesn't matter." "No," she whispered. "It doesn't." We sat like that for a long time. Two ghosts occupying the same space. Finally, I stood up. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight." Her eyes widened. "Wait, you don't have to." "I do," I said gently. "Because if I don't leave now, I'll start to wonder if staying makes me complicit. If staying means I'm okay with all of this. And I'm not. Not even close." She nodded slowly, eyes red, but she didn't stop me. I packed a bag in 10 quiet minutes. Toothbrush, shirt, a few essentials. When I came back downstairs, she was still at the table, her face buried in her hands. I don't hate you, I said softly. But I don't recognize you either. She didn't respond. As I stepped outside, the air hit me like a truth I'd been avoiding. Our home, our life, had been alive for longer than I realized. And somewhere in the distance, that man was still running. Maybe from me. Maybe from himself. Maybe from the kind of mess that never truly leaves you clean. But as I closed the door behind me, I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about the silence that would follow. The silence we'd both have to sit with. Alone. I didn't sleep much that night. The hotel room was clean, quiet, soulless. The kind of place designed to hold people who don't want to be where they are. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from passing cars stretch across the walls like ghosts of better days. Every hour, I checked the time, hoping somehow the clock would slow down so I wouldn't have to face the day ahead. At 7:12 a.m., I got out of bed. I didn't know what came next. Not really. I'd always imagined that if something like this happened, if I was ever betrayed, I'd lose it, break things, shout, demand answers. But when the truth came, it was so quiet, so final. There was no performance, just clarity. I drove back to the house just after 8. The driveway was empty. Her car was gone. I wondered if she'd gone to work like nothing happened. Or maybe she needed space too. I didn't ask. I didn't call. When I stepped inside, the house smelled like her perfume. Still lingering. Still haunting. The place was too clean, like she'd tried to tidy something that couldn't be fixed. I walked room to room, not searching for anything, just looking, touching the back of the couch where we used to watch movies, brushing my fingers along the kitchen counter where we'd made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Everything was exactly where it should be, and yet nothing was right. On the dining table, there was a note, folded neatly, my name on the front. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. I'm sorry. I don't have the right words. I know I hurt you. I know there's no fixing this, not really. But I never stopped loving you. Even when I lost myself, I still loved you. Maybe that makes it worse. I don't know. I just hope, someday, you find peace. And maybe, forgiveness. There was no I'll explain this time. No, it was a mistake. Just that. The closest thing to a confession I'd get. I folded the note and slid it into my back pocket. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe I needed proof that it happened, that she once had the courage to put ink to her regret. I spent the next few days making arrangements. A friend let me stay at his place while I figured things out. I contacted a lawyer. Not out of anger, just necessity. I wasn't going to let this destroy me, but I also wasn't going to pretend we could patch over the cracks and call it a house. She called once. I let it ring. Then came a text. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Because here's the truth I've come to understand. You can love someone and still walk away. You can wish things were different and still know they shouldn't be. You can remember every beautiful moment, every late-night laugh, every whispered promise, and still know it's time to leave. And walking away doesn't mean you stopped loving them. It means you finally started loving yourself more. I saw her once, weeks later, by accident, at a grocery store. She was alone, standing in front of the produce section, holding a bag of apples. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She looked older. Sadder. Softer somehow. She saw me too. We locked eyes. She opened her mouth, maybe to say something. Maybe to apologize again. Maybe just to ask how I'd been. But I gave her a small nod. Not cold. Not warm. Just enough. And then I turned and walked away. Not because I hated her. Not because I wanted her to feel pain. But because some doors, once opened, never closed the same way again. And because some truths, like the one I saw under the porch light that night, echo louder than any apology ever could. She said she was tired. She wasn't. And the man who ran, he saved me the trouble of chasing a lie. He ran because he knew what I hadn't yet accepted, that our marriage had already ended. The night she brought him to our doorstep wasn't the betrayal. It was the finale. And me? I've stopped waiting for the next act.